really obvious, but the culture is going to be completely different. I think it's interesting what you say about the MLS as well, because for all that goes on, and the viewing figures for football in India, for example, I know I keep going on about India, but that's the other big market, and in some of the African nations as well, the viewing figures are absolutely huge. And you do worry, and you think, well, that's good that people like this sport, but what about the game in that country itself? Maybe it's a different thing again in America, because as I've always understood it, baseball is the sport of the working man, if you like. That's the ordinary guy, the ordinary person's game in America, and so MLS is not quite going to be that. Whereas part of the the thing with football in Britain is that it's the sport of the ordinary people. It was made by and for ordinary people as well. So, but it's an interesting one, because the Premier League it is such a big brand. Is it going to damage the development of football? In particular countries where it's popular.
This brings up an interesting point. You talk about the MLS and the fact that it is an American sport, and I think what's maybe damaged the MLS to the purist football fan is they've Americanized it. It has playoffs. It has a championship game that two teams have to fight each other for. And the relegation system won't work here. There's not enough teams even in the lower levels. That we do have like the Fort Worth Vaqueros, and they are a lower level team. I can't even remember the league that they're in. I haven't even been to a game yet. If they draw 50 to 100 people a match, I would be surprised. I almost think that because of the way the EPL is structured with the relegation system and everything else, it won't happen in terms of the MLS joining something like that. But it makes me wonder, and Simon, chime in on this. Adam, I want to hear your opinion on this too. Would the MLS be best served to try to have direct affiliations, kind of like what Manchester City has with the new NYCFC that's coming in, and have direct affiliations with clubs over there to try to help maybe grow that franchise a little bit?
Well, there are partnerships existing already. I believe Colorado has links through Stan Kroenke to Arsenal, and we have a partnership with San Jose, although I really haven't seen if that is still in existence. I haven't seen any news on that in a couple of years. So there is to some degree, but I think it would probably be beneficial for MLS and the exposure of their product if there were more partnerships. Because of the way the seasons oppose themselves, to some degree there's more opportunity for loan agreements, and certainly with development squad or academy players, as we have seen. We've sent a few over in the last few years, and I think other clubs have done that too. But I think also players who've played in England who come out here and think they can be a success, it doesn't always work out. There have been some players who've played for Championship or lesser Premier League sides and have absolutely struggled out here and then just disappeared off the face of the earth. On the flip side, you saw with was it Bradley Wright Phillips? He just tore up the league this past summer for the MetroStars. So it can go both ways, but I definitely think that that's an opportunity from a strategic viewpoint that could be strengthened.
Yeah, it's a bit of a shame, really, because the quality of play in the league is not near as bad as the unsuspecting European eye would probably think. It's really not a terrible quality league. I mean, outside of Europe, I mean, I think it's a very good league. I mean, it really is, and it's getting better and better. We don't need kind of washed up European or world stars to. I mean, that certainly helps, but the quality of play is pretty good. It's not bad.
I would be kind of sort of naturally suspicious of the talk of affiliations and partnerships. I can understand the imperative behind it completely. I understand the situation with the MLS, that it's competing against other domestic sports and it needs to do everything it can do to gain a profile and to gain a foothold. There's just something that sticks in the craw a little bit about for example, the notion of New York City and what's happened with their affiliation with Manchester City, and obviously all the issue going over with Frank Lampard.
Oh, right.
Supposed to go to New York and he's ended up playing for Manchester City instead.
Never said that. Never said that. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah, it's kind of. I understand why the clubs want to think this way and have a bit of sympathy for what it's worth. But I just think it would be better for the game in the long term in America to develop organically in a way, as Martin was saying, like maybe the fan culture associated with the national side, that's been able to grow without too much of that kind of top-down pre-planning, thought, branding. This is a marketing strategy we're going to have. It just would be nice in an ideal world for the game in America, the domestic league game, like just to grow under its own steam.
Yeah, because it does seem like it would be very one-sided. It would only really benefit the MLS, I think, in a partnership like that. The EPL might be able to see a little bit of growth from the fan base side of things, but with the NBC contract and some of the others, beIN Sports and Fox Sports 1, Fox Soccer Channel, whatever, it's growing at a clip that I think that some of these clubs, and we mentioned it on the pod a couple weeks ago, I think this is a gold mine, just an absolute gold mine of potential money. For us, we can't go to the games and buy a season ticket, so we buy 2 or 3 kits. We're buying scarves, we're buying lucky socks like Sam did while he was over there. I mean, so we're pouring money into it a little bit in that regard, but the club could be doing, and just Spurs alone could be doing so much more over here. And when I see some of the bigger clubs, and I kind of do some searches and look around, they actually have 1 or 2 people that are employed by the club over here in America that run their supporters networks for them. It's not just simply based out of the club in London, hit this link on the website, this is kind of how you do it. Believe me, that doesn't always work very well. And a lot of people will give up because they don't really understand the entire process of how the whole thing works. And I think the club it would really behoove them to get somebody interjected in here that understands the cultures. We have a club down here in San Antonio. They have about, 6, maybe 8 members that are trying to get their official status. They have enough people to do it now, but I really don't know that they know what to do next. And Simon and I have reached out. We're going to help them as much as we can, and it makes you wonder, shouldn't there be somebody that represents the club that goes down there and gets them set up, and it takes maybe a quick afternoon to make that happen, rather than letting these people who have their own lives and responsibilities and things to do, on top of trying to organize a little bit of a club that can grow into something exponential. The Hispanic culture in San Antonio is such that that we don't have the coverage of the Mexican senior leagues and things like that we have here in America of the English Premier League. San Antonio could explode into 100 members in no time because of the football culture that is down there. And there are other places around the country that are hotbeds for football that haven't even been touched yet, that the potential there would be just unreal. But I don't think the club understands enough about the diversity, the regional interest in the game, enough to be able to go out and tackle those individual regions and markets. So, Mr. Levy, if you're listening, I'm available for hire, and I would love to be able to go around and take care of that.
Shameless self-promotion there. But let me put a blunt overlay on this, because I view the two of you as very old school, proper supporters, and all this talk, right, of promoting Spurs and promoting this club in the U.S., right? When I get the sense that there's some feelings of misgivings on the parts of proper supporters like you, that the club doesn't do enough for its own supporters in England.
Why would they do it for us? Yeah.
Well, I'd really like to get your blunt feelings as to all this global promotion when you feel like there's maybe quite a bit to grumble about at home. Am I being off base there?
No, I think it's right, and I think it's a really interesting issue, and possibly because I know you're getting Kat and Suraj on from the Supporters Trust board in a couple of podcasts, so maybe leave them to talk a little bit more about that. But it's an interesting discussion that we're having on the Supporters Trust with some of the international fan clubs at the moment, because I think that as a fan based in England, somebody who is involved with the Supporters Trust, an independent organisation. There is a problem with that. There is a problem that people have got with the overt commercialisation of the fact that Spurs are all trying to sell stuff. But it's a different set of issues. I think if I was living in the States or living in Nigeria or wherever, or South Africa, where we've got a big support for Australia,
right,
is another place, then I would you're looking for some of that kind of commercial push, it's a tricky one, because that is a way for you to get closer to the club, and that also, there's the merchandise and all the rest of it. There's also potentially the trips and getting along to the game. Especially when people talk to the supporters trust, and the supporters trust movement in the UK comes from more of a kind of cooperative, kind of trade union-y independent place, if you like, than a commercial place. People are saying, well, actually the club is constantly trying to, get more and more money out of the fans, and there's a problem with that, and that's not really your job. The club has got a commercial department, and they can do that, and those people are paid for that job, and I think that is right. We have a connection with international fans, and I think that one of the things that you're going to look for, if you're not able to get to the game regularly, if you don't live in England, is that you're going to look for a way to make a connection, and some of that is commercial. So there is an interesting discussion to have there, and we're having that with the affiliated clubs that we've got, particularly in the States, but also in other countries, about how do we get that balance right between being an independent fans organisation, which we have to be constitutionally, but also by giving people what they want. But I think the starting point for that conversation is recognising that we're based in different places and in different sets of circumstances, but sets of needs. I certainly think that the club, if I was running a club from a business point of view, I would want to be pointing to developing the game and developing the club's brand, if you like, than possibly they are. And I'm naturally suspicious of that talk of brand and business and whatever, but actually, football is a business, and I think Spurs is actually comparatively quite a well-run club. I think the argument comes down not against the money, we're against what's done with the money once it's made. So it's the way the business is run, rather than is it being run as a business, if you like. And people then talk about that comparison between the NFL, the great cliche when you get discussions amongst, sports fans and particularly sports journalists that look at the business side of things as well, as they say that, you've got something like the NFL, which is almost a kind of socialist system within the biggest, most voracious capitalist economy in the world, and then you've got, the complete opposite over here. Now, I don't think that's entirely true, but that's the perception that goes on. There's actually
no, but there's a noticeable irony in that, in terms of how the businesses are run relative to the social democracy, generally speaking, in Europe, and the complete sort of commitment to capitalism in the U.S. You're absolutely right.
Well, one of the issues that we got in, like with the Premier League here, it was set up as with a commercial imperative. They took ideas for reform, badly needed reform, but really what they did take in from the inception was the ones that were going to make them money. And that's kind of an issue that's ongoing, and it's been frustrating for fans. Martin and myself, we were at a conference a couple of years back, and the question was raised about engagement. How do clubs engage with their fans? And really the manifestation of that engagement with English football has been exactly that. It's been a commercial one. Like, how can we engage with the fans? How can we maximise the revenue that we're making from them, as opposed to the more touchy-feely notions of engagement about getting in touch with people and bringing them into, the wider, or the club family, and making them feel part of what a football club is about. There's been that tension, since the setup of the Premier League, and it's ongoing.
I think the premise of trying to understand, how the league is going to grow really puts a little bit of an onus on each individual club on how they want to attack this with the network's influence on the American supporter. I find all of the different views interesting, but it seems that when it all comes round, we all want the same thing. We want the league to be successful. The influx of money is really interesting to me. Some of the television contract numbers had gotten out, I think, that are going through 2017 or 2019, whatever it was. It's in the billions of dollars that
5.1 billion pounds.
Yeah, £1 billion. But is that individual?
No, it's 5. It's 5 point. It's yeah.
£1 billion new deal for 4 years.
Yeah,
that's just the domestic deal as well.
Yeah. So what did NBC pay? And for how many years? Well, we need to look that up.
I think they've got one more season left. I don't remember how many years. Sorry, how much they paid this
one
year.
Season left of the current deal, which is the biggest deal that they ever had by some considerable amount. And then for, I think it's 4 years after that, they've just signed a £5.1 billion deal. They were expecting to get 4.6 billion, so that's not an insignificant rise again. And that's partly because of increased competition that BT are now compete with Sky and have got the money to compete with Sky. and they think it's going to keep going up. Outside argument is when the game is making that money % over the last 20 years. That's not an exaggeration. Ticket prices have gone up that much. Then people are saying, that's where, the doubt and the suspicion of the commercialisation